Hello there everyone, this is I Am Mark III and welcome to an intermission episode in From the Depths, Ashes of the Empires. Now, what is an intermission episode? It's been no secret that my channel's been kind of short on From the Depths content for quite some time now. And so I thought maybe it would be a good idea to have some intermission bits and pieces to show you what's going on. And this one was originally planned out as just showing me upgrading the existing vehicles and building the new version of my heavy prototype and things like that, but surprise surprise, I got just generally sidetracked. So yes, well, this won't be interesting, mind you, at least I hope this will be interesting, but it's not what I planned either. So here we go. But first, just to get it very quickly out of the way, I've been saying that I don't want to keep giving you health related news for some time. I keep doing it. Hopefully this will be the last one for a while, because I am finally on some long needed sick leave. And fingers crossed that's going to help. And because of that, I might have more time and energy to be able to make more videos more consistently, like I've been wanting to do for some time. I mean, a good question I ask myself is, when, in the last couple of months, was my channel actually completely reliable? Yeah, that's kind of the answer, isn't it? Anyway, on to this intermission episode, which is compact lasers. This started out with me trying to start recording updating my existing tanks, actually. And that's why sitting in front of us is the stripped down laser turret of a Scorpion AAT. Since I wanted to strip that down just to have a quick look at it and stuff like that, so here's its basic stats really quickly. Twin axis turret, it's got 7.5 degree tracking in and of itself. Its accuracy is actually pretty bad, 0.4, and that's because it's only got a 13 meter barrel. But this is where my plans started to run away with me just a little bit. I thought it would be cool if I had a look at the laser systems present in the Mark I and Mark II tanks, and that's these two here side by side. I copied them out, stripped them down to just the laser systems, worked all that out, and so they're right here on show so you can see exactly what is involved in both of them. And then from there I think yeah, this is what I wound up with. This is the result of about 4.5 hours of constant poking and prodding and reworking and restyling just laser systems in general, and checking wiki pages and the comments that you guys have given me on the last episode. And yeah, after 4.5 hours, this is what I came up with instead of, you know, upgrading my darn tanks. Instead I've just been poking holes in the concept of compact laser systems in general, and I've come up with some things that have actually kind of surprised me in general, which is why I thought this would be interesting. I thought you guys might like to see it. Also, right here is the first full steam engine I ever worked out. It's a really compact design that produces about 5,000 reliable power when it's being fully used, and when idle it won't blow itself to pieces, which is always a plus in my eyes. But yeah, that's just my compact 4x4 steam engine. Not what we're here for, is it? On the left here, Scorpion Mark I. You can tell it's a Scorpion Mark I because it's got the exposed engine underneath it and stuff like that. While the Mark II over here is the one that's the steam-based variant, and I think the Scorpion's going to have to stay with a steam power source in general, maybe. Because if I go ahead with what I'm thinking of refitting it with for the Mark III, that's actually going to cut its power requirements considerably. and its main power requirement is actually the laser. But let's get started. First thing I should note, this test rig I've got here, it's laid out like this. It's got transceivers in the middle pointing towards the turret, and then I've put the laser blocks out to the side. So the idea is you get a transceiver and then just whack it onto the multi-purpose laser to just cut it into circuit with the turret where your avatar is standing, and then you can just, let's go very quickly to show you actually. Got the transceiver, whack it onto this turret here, go out to build mode, and then you can position your camera like this. So you're looking at the block, get the stats up, you can see it, you can control the turret and you can fire the turret, and you can use that just to draw the stats out and see exactly what it's doing. And then when you've got a different system, you just remove that transceiver, put in a new one, and there you go, that's all there is to it, really. Let's get rid of this and get back to first person mode. Right, I've shown you the Scorpion turret. So here we go, the Scorpion Mark 1 laser. This is the one which I was not happy with the performance of at all. I mean, 29 pumps, 11,000 storage, only 1 AP, so it was actually terrible against most things, and that's why it was so underwhelming. Sustained fire could do 430 per pulse for 2.9 engine power. While the Mark II was 370 per pulse, which is actually less. It had 2 less pumps as well, so it's slightly easier to maintain it. But it had a whopping 8 armor piercing, so it was doing far more damage in general, and that's the one that my Scorpions currently have fitted to them, which is really good. And that's where I started for this video. So comparison is here. Mark II versus Mark 1. The Mark II is longer, so it has more armor piercing value. It has slightly less maximum damage, but since most things it hits have got some armor rating, it's doing more overall, so it's more efficient in general combat. Also, it's 17 meters long. So yes, there we go. Wait, I haven't mentioned this, have I? Yes, let's quickly mention. The reason I want to do the Scorpions first in this entire hypothetical refit video is because the information I gave you last time, as so many of you are so graciously pointing out, was in fact not quite the entire truth. I'm going to stand by most of it because the basic gist of things was actually correct, but the key flaw in what I said was the exact ratio of armor piercing you required to defeat and deal maximum damage to a block. And I was saying it's actually half. You don't need to match the armor value, you need to double it. So yes, you guys were correct on that. I was wrong. I apologise. And as I said, you were really quick in pointing that out, and thank you for that. It's what led to all this stuff in the first place. So yeah, let's move on, shall we? Because from here I started to test my lasers and see what I was working on. Though first up I brought in 2 stock designs I'd already got worked out just to see how they perform with the lasers. I must stress, these 2 systems are not actually offensive weapons grade lasers. These are the cores for anti-missile lasers. This one is an AMS core with 1x emitter as its focus, 7 pumps for 5 armor piercing, 105 damage, 7.8k range, 700 engine power to sustain it. And this thing can sustain a laser through a anti-missile system, only 1, and it will pack enough power to swat any missile it hits straight out of the sky. That's what this one does. And then directly opposite is the 2 emitter version, which is exactly the same principle. In fact, it just doubles the pumps, same armor piercing, roughly the same storage to maintain its damage output, and yeah, that one can function for 2 emitters before the lasers start to lose any kind of power. So these cores are a really, really cheap, really efficient to run source for a purely anti-missile laser system. That's what these 2 cores are for. Though admittedly for a laser turret they are actually absolutely horrible. I mean seriously, 110 damage? Yeah, that's not much at all. Also, this thing through a single turret is actually far worse than that one, the single emitter one, because it's built for 2 emitters. If you double up the laser turrets, then it's just fine. It can supply 2 turrets at that rate, but it's just not useful. Moving on. Magic versus Mark II. Thank you, Svorti, for giving me the general ratio and theory for the magic formula, which is this laser core right here. It's built to 20 pumps, it's got 9,000 storage, it's got the damage destabilizers to increase its offensive punch, just as you mentioned in the comment. So, and this model with a 4Q setting, 290 damage at 10k range, and it requires 2,000 engine power to sustain it. Though, a slight flaw here. Since we're building this to go into the Scorpions, that is what I mean by compact lasers. The laser's size is being severely limited by the overall size of the hull which we are trying to fit it into. I mean, the reason the Mark I is so short is because it was going in across the vehicle like that, while the Mark II is longer because it's been turned around and mounted lengthways. Though even then, there's really thin armour on the front of the vehicle here, where it's I've hollowed it out a little bit just to give it a little bit more armour-piercing punch. So, to be honest, in the refit, the Scorpion's hull is going to have to be altered a little bit, extended a little bit to house a longer laser system. At least with the lasers I'm planning to put into it. Anyway, let's get back to this. The magic formula, as I said, 290, 10k, stuff like that. It's got 5 armour piercing in the maximum length that the Mark II occupies, which is, I think it was 17? Yeah, 17 meters long. So that's what that one can do. But for comparison, I built a Mark II version, following the same pattern as my current compact laser theory, which is essentially a raw power. 20 pumps, 9k storage, 10 AP. 290 damage, 10k range, 2k engine. All sound familiar? It really should, because this raw power version has identical stats to the formula-based one, with the sole exception of armor piercing, in which case it actually packs extra armor piercing in comparison. And that's because the destabilizers in this layout, there's too many destabilizers from what I can tell. And so that each shot is taking too much power and it's dropping down to the same levels. I'm not counting initial laser pulse strength, because the entire idea in this case is how much power will the laser be putting out continuously once it's wound down to its basic power levels. 1 or 2 stronger hits at the start is not really what I'm after. So yeah, in this case I think the initial hitting damage is not as valuable as the increased armor piercing, which is found in this original pattern here. Though to be honest, I then went and built another one here, which is trying to change it a little bit to see if I was actually correct in that theory. I took out one of the frequency ones for a destabilizer, but in the test firing it was sacrificing 1 armor piercing for absolutely identical performance. So yes, I think the problem here is the basic concept of a compact laser system, which I'll get to shortly. Moving on. No, actually, this is a great time to talk about the concept of a compact laser system. Okay, these things are 17-meter laser systems. That is absolutely pathetic as far as laser systems go. You see these really powerful lasers that just tear vehicles to shreds, and they're in the region of 50 meters, 60 meters, 80 meters plus. Really, really long, really, really powerful laser systems. These things are 20 meters, and even then that is struggling to fit in such a small chassis to house it all. But a compact laser system, from what I can tell, for optimal performance on a laser, trying to get as much DPS out of it as you can in the least space you can, what you really need above everything else is 2 things. The first thing is you need to have extra storage space. If you don't have the space for the energy to go into, that cuts down your maximum damage considerably, so you can't just build a basic array of these pumps and things and expect that to do wonderfully. It won't. You need storage space for it to really perform at all. And so you've got to have at least one of these installed. Second thing is what I just mentioned, pumps. You've got to pump as much power into this thing as you can. The more you pump in, the more DPS you'll get out of it. And those two factors is what makes a compact laser system. You just don't have the space to try and mess around with destabilizers and things like that. Though, I must admit my theory was wrong, as in I underestimated the sheer importance of the frequency doublers for armor piercing. I completely messed that up. And you guys have definitely opened my eyes on that one. It needs armor piercing, very much so. But that's the whole concept behind a compact laser. Moving on. Next up, since I originally envisioned these lasers to be designed to try and take out a single small metal block in one hit, I realised that that wouldn't be really feasible without going for a longer system, since my AP would have to be at least 20. So instead, I remodeled it with a new target of 14 AP and 140 damage on a 4Q style laser for maximum rate of fire to better strip out blocks as fast as it possibly can. Not to mention the fact that a 4Q is more energy efficient and dishes out a lot more DPS than, say, a 2Q or a 1Q. Though that's beside the point. My first attempt was this, to just see what was the absolute minimum I could use to get away with, dealing that much in terms of raw output. And this was the answer. 5 pumps, storage of 1000 energy inside the laser system, and as a result it needs 500 power only to power the thing. It sustains its fire at 141 damage per pulse, and as a test I actually took this thing down to a 2Q because that was as slow as I could get it, while actually maintaining this amount of damage with this number of pumps. So this is a 2Q laser system rather than a 4Q laser system, and you see that little note there saying multi-core with a question mark? For a little bit I was toying with the idea of taking this long system here, which is actually a 17 meter one, because that's what I was trying to build it into, 17 meters length maximum, of taking this and then trying to array them in a grid. So can I very quickly show you? I think I can. Right, the idea was this. I would have one there, and then along the length I would have more cores to increase the overall rate of fire of the turret, because there would be multiple cavities loading up and ready to fire as soon as the turret was able. Since a 2Q switch laser is only 25% the rate of fire of a 4Q switch laser, having these 4 together would rival the sheer rate of fire of a 4Q switch laser, though at the cost of being roughly 3.5 times larger or something like that. I didn't measure it too closely, but it would be a lot larger and more expensive and take up more space in the vehicle for equivalent performance, as I really discovered over here, because my next experiment was to build a 4Q version. Let's get rid of that so, hide the interface again. Where's the thing? There's the thing. Right, here we go. The 4Q type of the same thing. 150 pulse per pulse. The destabilizer. I tried putting in a destabilizer on this one as well because I'm still trying to test it. Destabilizer on the compact laser system. In theory, it didn't do a thing to it except for adding to the length. But this thing has 14 AP, so that's what it requires. 10 pumps, 1000 power cavity. But yeah, the power cavity is essential for 4Qs. This is also where I worked out the basics, like you need the cavity and stuff like that. This is the laser where I nailed it down. And then this particular arrangement is 2 meters longer, making it a 19 meter laser system, and this is what I mean by the Scorpion's chassis needs to be a bit longer to house this, because if I don't make the chassis a little bit longer, it's going to actually poke out the front, because there'll be no more space for armour. So I'm thinking I'll just give the Scorpion a bit more of a backside, round it out a little bit, and then the laser can sit a bit further back, and that'll give it the space it requires. Because ultimately, I'm quite impressed with this 4Q system here. I mean, 10 cavities, that means it runs on 1000 power compared to the 2700 of the current laser. Sure, it deals a lot less damage per hit, like less than half, but you know. No, here we go. Yeah, it uses 1/3 the power, and it deals 2/5 of the damage. But because of the high armor piercing, it actually does it a lot more reliably. And also as a note here, if I increase it to maximum pumps, which is like an extra 2 pumps, it'll give me 175 per pulse instead of 150, which will help deal with the range issue of losing laser power when it goes through the air. So I'm thinking, unless you guys have some better suggestion for it, this 4Q system here is what's going to go straight into the Scorpion's Mark III version. Then of course, in good conscience, testing. A 2Q type, 12 pumps. So yeah, for these reduced Q-switch ones, I ramped up the pumps to maximum regardless, because I think that's the way forward. 450 per pulse, or if I put in a destabilizer, 430 per pulse. So yeah, a destabilizer actually lost its power. A 1Q, 12 pumps, 620 per pulse. Adding in a destabilizer, 610 per pulse. So again, destabilizer actually losing its raw damage when it comes to sustained fire. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on here, but this is kind of contrary to a lot of the things that you guys have been trying to tell me. Like destabilizers will increase the damage. 3Q type, 12 pumps, 280. Destabilizer drops it to 270 on a 3Q. So yeah, uniformly it loses about 10 damage per pulse, or 20 in the case of the 1Q version, just for adding a destabilizer to the end of the thing. So yeah, that's not great. Compact lasers definitely don't mix with frequency destabilizers at all. Wait, frequency destabilizers? What am I talking about? I forgot the name. They're just, yeah, laser destabilizers, not frequency doublers. I was getting the names combined. Just destabilizers. If you're doing a compact laser system, avoid them like the plague. They are not worth it. More power will serve you better every time, from what I can see. And then, of course, these systems over here was me looking at the wiki, the official From the Depths wiki, for destabilizers to cavities to pump ratios, just to see how it all goes. And I built the first 3 out like this, as it recommended on the wiki page. 1 destabilizer, 3 cavities, 4 pumps, 45 damage, like that. And then of course I took the destabilizer off for testing, and that dropped it to 30. So in this kind of ratio, destabilizer is worth it on a laser this small. Then on this one, 2 to 6 to 11, 89 damage. Though when I took off a destabilizer, it actually had no effect. The second destabilizer sustaining its fire, it was identical to having only 1. So yeah, for some reason this one doesn't require it. I don't know why. I'm guessing the formulas have been tweaked or something. Third one, 3 destabilizers, 10 cavities, 23 pumps, 290 damage at 10 km per pulse. 2 destabilizers. Yep, it wouldn't be my video unless I tripped over my words at some point. 2 destabilizers did 240 damage per pulse. 1 destabilizer did 180 per pulse at 9.6 kilometers. So if you've got a particularly weak laser, destabilizers do actually increase your effective range, though they might have negative effects on your actual damage depending on the design of the laser. But I'm not entirely sure what happened to this one. Not entirely sure at all. But anyway, for completion of course, I tried it using my compact laser theory by swapping out the excess cavities and things, just to get it down with a storage cavity instead, to make them as compact as possible. Like, barely any change in that one block. This one is 3 meters shorter. This one is, again, about 3 meters shorter. Things like that. And sustained fire, the results are actually the same. A compact laser, it doesn't have the initial striking value of a full-fledged massive laser system. It just can't do that. So what they're engineered for really is sustained fire, and that is where I've got all these stats from. And that's where if the laser keeps firing and firing and firing until it drops its energy to its lowest possible value and keeps on firing. Those are the stats I've been looking at. And those are the stats that I'm trying to take away from this to show you guys and to work with when I'm designing these tanks. Because at the end of the day, I want a reliable combat weapon. I don't want something that just gets weaker over time. Because if I build it to be weak over time, then I'll be disappointed in it, because it's like the first couple of shots will be amazing. And then all the shots following it will be lackluster until it becomes far less effective. So a compact laser system is all about damage over time, and that's always ties into how much energy you can supply the laser with as its minimum requirement. So yeah, that's what I've spent about 4 hours or so working on and browsing about and trying to make sure I actually got all the information correct this time. I am 90%, 95% sure I got it all correct. I mean, as you saw, I made notes on the signs all around this thing as I went along on this laser testing rig, just to show you what I'm doing with it and to make sure I didn't forget anything either. But I'm seriously questioning the official wiki page right now, because the stats I got from the wiki page's lasers are a bit anomalous, and it wasn't written with the storage cavities in mind either. So I think that the wiki page might actually be due for a bit of an update regarding actual lasers and how they perform. Because I also couldn't find much on it regarding how lasers are affected by armor piercing, or lack thereof. So yeah, kind of a mixed bag here. But I also hope this helps to show you guys how much sheer variety you can get in this game. Even with as few blocks as you can find within the laser system, I've built all these different lasers in the 17 to 19 meter range for the most part, and they all perform differently in their own ways. Yeah. And that is the intermission episode on compact laser systems. I hope you enjoyed watching it, I hope you had some fun with it, and I hope you'll have fun poking holes in everything I've said, because no doubt I have said something somewhere which someone will disagree with. But that's just how things go sometimes, isn't it? Especially on something like this. Also, as a side note, I'm willing to upload the laser testing rig itself up to the Steam Workshop for you guys if you decide you want it. If you want to just download it and have a poke at these different compact lasers and see how they work out for you, then yeah, let me know and I'll make it available. So, with that said, this has been Iron Mark 3. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll catch you some other time. I'll see you later.